A couple other topics I want to talk about was that the world is flat. Did you guys understand that world is flat kind of thing? Does that make sense?
I think so. It's kind of talking about like, oh, I'll get $10 now, or if I was actually put work into it, I could get like more later.
It's more like
it's kind of like a business.
A little bit.
I
It's
only
kind of like how you
understand this where there's actually this.
kind of, yeah, like how you connect with the world. So it's like they describe 3 different levels of 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0, and it's just like how you interact with the rest of society. So like a 3.0 country, the U.S. is a 3.0 country because I could get on the internet and find out any information I needed like this. I can answer any question, I just Google it and I know the answer. I can communicate with someone that's halfway across the world like this, just because we have that technology and we're developed like that.
You buy something from China.
And it will, so it's just
and
like
it will arrive in 5 days.
It's ridiculous how, that's what they mean, how flat it is. And then like a 1.0 country is where it's just within your country, just only trade, like people just go off of each other. You have your own business, whatever, you just trade with people that are right there. It's no global interaction. And so one thing we talked about with the world being flat is globalization. Does anyone know what that is? You heard of it? A little bit? I'm gonna try to explain it.
Isn't it just like being able to have knowledge of everything else while still being in your area?
Right. So it's like it's just taking ideas from other places and adapting them into your own country. One of the examples.
Bangladesh.
Yeah, Bangladesh. Okay. Bangladesh. One of the things. It was a good example. I can't remember, but it was like I think it was like cricket or something, or a game that was invented in one country like is now like a dominant like game in a different country. Like it's like their main thing that they do, and so it's just like taking ideas from other places and bringing them in. Yeah. So the process has been going on for forever. People are always learning from each other and taking each other ideas and doing that stuff. But they just really started using the term like in the last 50, 60 years. They started like putting a name on it and saying this is globalization. And so a lot of people have different opinions on it, that it's good and bad. One thing that we observed was a place called Ladakh. It was like this super like traditional area where it's like you only trade with people that are around you, like you work for all the food that you need. Like it's a 1.0 area, like that was kind of thing. And so I don't even remember who it was going in and trying to help their country develop a little bit more, and they're trying to globalize them a little bit, and it was a train wreck. Like they tried to do it so quickly, and they tried to implement all these different ideas on people, and they did the globalization so fast that the people didn't know how to respond. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to react to it. So people have different ideas on globalization.
Well, I still think it's everything in moderation. Like, the brownies are gonna burn. Everything in moderation. I mean, globalization is a great thing.
When it's used in the right way.
Yeah, you have to know how to implement it in each country that you're going into. You can't take what the United States has and dump it on the Congo and say it'll work.
Because they're not in the same situation.
They're not in the same situation. They don't have the same resources. They don't have the same people. They didn't grow up knowing the same things. So it's just completely different. And being able to recognize like what you can take from the United States and then implement that into the Congo would be much better.
At what level they are at.
Exactly. Starting it and then building it up from there. You can't just,
so do you guys remember in the questions we asked about perspectives and that kind of thing? So that's one thing we've kind of been focusing a lot in our class, is learning how to view things from different perspectives so that you can learn more about everything. Does that make sense? So one of the things that I liked about globalization was the celestial perspective, just that the church has like a phenomenal way of handling globalization, because they know how to spread the gospel. They know how to get to individual countries and start at a level where people will understand. So when you're going to teach someone the gospel, you don't throw at them the deepest doctrine you know. You start really basic and build out of it. And so that's where I think that from a celestial perspective, it can be really, really good, but it can also be really bad because, like prophets say, that this is like the hardest time, it's the roughest age, whatever, and that could be, I think, because of globalization, because of all these different things that we're adopting and we're taking in so much of the world that you can sometimes be globalized into kind of a wrong idea. So that's kind of an interesting thing I thought about perspectives, is that you can just look at, like, you can look at anything from any way that you want. Okay, we're going to try to wrap this up fast, but I just want someone, if you would, say what you think inequality is.
Inequality?
Yep.
When things are not equal.
Thank you, Sarah. How do you define like how something is equal? Like how much stuff you have, how happy you are. Like how do you define equality?
Ooh.
I mean, I think usually I define equality by like priority or respect.
What do you mean?
I think. Oh, sorry.
I guess I'm just kind of talking about like human to human, but like when I think about equality, like how much of my time do I give to one person versus another person based on like if they were in the same situation.
Right.
I'm a math tutor, so like if someone comes to me with the same question, but I don't like the person, like I try and get through it as quick as possible. So like I'm not treating them equally,
right.
Like no bias, whatever.
I think that a lot of it would have to do with opportunities. Like, I mean, I think that, like, I mean, obviously, we're not all have the exact same set of resources and the exact same parents or the exact families or this or that we're born into, and it's just perfect. Everyone's equal exactly this much or whatever. But like, the thing is, we all have the opportunity to improve our situation. And those opportunities may be different for different people. They may be very different, but we all have those opportunities. And I think that that's kind of the important thing. And another thing from American Foundations that they talked about is, like, if we were to try to make it all exactly equal resources-wise or anything else, you're giving power to someone to divvy up that. And as soon as people get power, generally they abuse it. And so it's, I don't know, I think it's the best way to go is to just do it the Lord's way and just have to do. I think it would have to involve opportunities.
Yeah. I like that because I, like, from the celestial perspective, which a lot of you said you wanted to hear more about, like, people have their agency to do whatever they want. So when we're trying to make things equal, if I'm trying to make it so that the Congo is not the poorest country in the world, the least developed country in the world, where the U.S. is doing so well, like creating that equality, everyone has their agency to choose what they're going to do. So I really like what you said about providing people resources, because that's all you can do. Like getting people the information that they need to be able to bring themselves up, to try to be as equal as you can, but not trying to force something upon them. I think is kind of what we already talked about. So yeah, I like that. Okay, last thing. So we talked about in our class also this thing called the dialectic of the local and the global. Anyone ever heard of that?
Ooh, sounds interesting.
Yeah. So what it is basically like, after we have this discussion, like, how do we take something that's worldwide, that's so far away from us, and bring it home? Like, how do we take those kind of things and make it apply to us? And so a couple examples that I thought of this was, the definition of dialectic of local and the global is taking those things and applying them to yourself, right? And so taking a thing like changing someone's culture and completely like trying to mold, like in some countries where their idea of where, let's say like how they treat women is one way, and that's how they live their whole life. That's how they understand it to be. That's how that's always been. Trying to change someone's idea of that when they've started from that's what they've known their whole life is hard. And when someone doesn't know that it's like that the way that women are being treated in some places is bad, it's hard to be able to change their perspective. And so a thing that I thought of that kind of applies to us in that way, which is not as extreme, but it's like changing your traditions when you get married. It's something that applies to that. That you have to take that balance and you have to look at where you are with each other and compromise to figure out how you're going to do things. And it's the same way when you're trying to change their culture. You can't change everything about their culture, and it's going to take step-by-step pieces. So that's kind of something that I figured would work for that, as well as my favorite one that I thought of was observing and then serving. So that's like kind of been a main theme of what we've been talking about today, is like especially with the gold, you can't just throw stuff at people. You can't just give it to them. You've got to really see what that person wants and what they need, and then serve them. Which is what I don't remember who gave the talk. You guys remember about observing and serving? Somebody did. A lady gave it.
Was it?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
Linda K. Burton, the Relief Society president.
Maybe. I don't know. All I know is I remember her talking. You did meet her. About that you don't just take somebody a plate of cookies. Like you don't just go to everybody and count that as service. Like you really have to get to know the person or the person that you're trying to serve and understand what they need, which you guys caught on to right away. That we need to like make sure that they know exactly what the Congo's needs are, and then cater to those needs rather than just getting out there and doing that. So
I think it's a struggle too, because I mean they talk about this in education. Like you were talking a lot about application, but it can go even further than application. I mean like understanding how it relates and like linking together different variables and being like, oh well, if I treat women this way, maybe it'll change this, like, and maybe that'll change. I'm taking it more to like an evaluation kind of perspective.
Yeah.
It just moves higher up and just really does it. But it's a hard thing to do. That difficult topic.
Okay. Do you guys have any other questions? How do you know so much about the Democratic Republic of the Congo?
What's the Dominican Republic of the Congo? Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Democratic Republic of Congo.
Thanks for teaching us.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, guys.
That was so
You
fun.
guys did
Can
great.
we donate $1?
You can donate
Donate
$1.
$1.